Well, let's take you to Senegal because it is parliamentary elections taking place. Polls still open for another hour or so, set to determine whether the country's newly elected president, Bassirou Diomaye Faye, can carry out reforms that he promised when he was brought to office earlier this year. Surprise victory that saw him and Ousmane Sonko, the Prime Minister, come together from prison to leadership in the space of 3 weeks and ending the 12-year reign of Macky Sall. Well, the opposition has a majority in Parliament. Elections last taking place back in 2022, and they have just about a majority, 58 to 57. Diomaye Faye dissolved Parliament back in September, saying that it was blocking him from implementing the reforms. So let's go to Dakar. Let's bring in Caitlin Kelly, our correspondent there. Caitlin, great to talk to you this evening. Set out where you've been today, what's happening, and also some context, because last time we were talking about elections in Senegal, we had this rare occasion where it was a very febrile affair.
Yeah, that's right, Gavin. So today I've spent most of the day roaming around Dakar, visiting various polling stations. Polls have been open since 8 a.m. for the legislative elections, and I've been spending time with voters who mostly have expressed how calm and easy it's been to vote here in Senegal today. I guess that's some surprise given that there's been a few incidents of violence on the campaign trail, but also, as you said, previous unprecedented unrest during the presidential election earlier this year, which again was out of sorts for Senegal, which is seen as the bastion of democracy here in West Africa. But today, local election monitors have recorded no incident of violence, they said on social media, and they also came out with a voter turnout at about 2 p.m. of 35%, which is not that surprising given legislative elections here in Senegal tend to be less attended than presidential, but it remains to be seen what the overall turnout will be later in the day. We've seen some encouragement from the various leaders of the parties on social media to still come out. People should come out in their masses and vote. But as you can see behind me, things are thinning out as we're approaching the last hour of elections here in Senegal.
Give us some context, Caitlin. That's what we can say. We're in the midst of electoral silence, so we are fairly limited. But just give us the broad stakes here, because this was a president and a prime minister that had a very sudden appearance on the political landscape after serving time in prison. We saw protests in the country. Just what the argument is around why these elections are being, we're seeing them now, and the political deadlock that's going on in Parliament too.
Yeah, I think if we go back to September, that was the moment that President Diomaye Faye called this snap election, claiming that he was physically unable to move forward with his ambitious new policy agenda and reforms and what he's now calling the Vision 2050 for Senegal. And this deadlock was stopping policies such as economic transformation, anti-corruption changes, and addressing bigger social issues here in Senegal. At the moment, you've got inflation at about 20%, high unemployment, lots of people still leaving the country in search of new lives and new jobs. And so for the new administration, this is really a crucial moment for them to prove and to solidify their power. They really need this majority in Parliament to be able to move things forward, is what they say. And there are 3 key opposition coalitions that are up against PASTEF, and they've also informally banded together to try and stop them from getting a majority. But it's hard to say how things will unfold. But speaking to voters today, the general sentiment is that there needs to be some change here in Senegal.
Caitlin, good to talk to you. We'll talk to you in a short while once the polls have closed. Caitlin Kelly, our correspondent in Senegal.